Yo, it's Shake, and we're back. It's Anwar and Jeff for a little bit of breaking news here on the Orangebloods Texas football channel. Do us a solid like. If there's ever a video to like, this would be the one. Subscribe to the channel because this is what we do when breaking news warrants immediate response. Anwar and I jump on our computers and we do exactly that. Jordan Addison, Pittsburgh wide receiver, All-American, Biletnikoff Award winner, in town right now as we record this video, Anwar, presumably having finished his chicken
from Canes, Raising Canes,
from a little Raising Canes, but it is not an insignificant deal that the Biletnikoff Award winner from last season is on campus right now visiting the Longhorns. We literally did a video earlier this morning where we talked about the needs that Steve Sarkeesian mentioned yesterday in San Antonio at an event. The wide receiver was one of his biggest needs. He even mentioned at one point that they planned on bringing 2 more wide receivers in, and that made all of our ears kind of go, huh. Not again. I don't want to overhype this because it's very possible that this kid could still end up at USC. But what we know about recruiting in the portal is that getting a kid on campus for an official visit is a really big deal. And I think this separates Texas from some of the other schools that we're talking about. I know that Alabama has been making a push this week. He's not on campus in Tuscaloosa right now. He's in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, it's obviously a huge deal. Something obviously we've been following for a very long period of time. Really, Catch, it's something that Texas fans have been speculating about really since Brennan Marion was hired. It's been always a thought process of like, could they get Jordan Addison? And it was like, no, there's no way this is ever going to happen. He's happy at Pitt. I think I gotta go back and remember. I almost feel like he reaffirmed his commitment to Pitt at one point early on, but goes to the transfer portal. And to your point, you've got to get somebody on campus, and now Texas is clearly in the mix. And it reminds me of the O'Shawn Mathis thing where it's kind of talked about, and all of a sudden it shows up. You're like, okay, play ball. Now it's really time to see what they do. Like you can't. It's easy when a guy doesn't come on campus, because then you don't have any real expectations. You don't have to say, Texas, lost a guy if it doesn't pan out. Now you realize like, no, it's here. He's one of this is one of the finalists. And, you got to hope that, now Sarkeesian, everybody else, the staff puts on a presentation for him that, sways him to commit to Texas. And if that happens, arguably have one of the best receiving core, if not the best receiving core in the nation.
I was thinking about it in the last hour before we recorded this video that if Texas is able to add Addison, we can legitimately start talking about the skill position pieces on this Texas offense going into 2022 as one of the best that I've ever seen in the history of the school. Now, they have to come together, and they haven't played together yet. But you've got a quarterback in Quinn Ewers that was a unanimous #1 overall pick, in recruiting in a way that only like 3 or 4 guys in the last 20 years have been. He's expected to be a first-round quarterback when it's all said and done. You've got a running back in Bijan Robinson, who will be among the top running backs if he stays healthy at next year's NFL draft. There's speculation already he could go in the teens. Scouts like him. It's hard to say with running backs what exactly will happen with them in the draft, but he's going to play on Sundays. You've got Xavier Worthy, who you and I love, and who I think, as we did a video a couple of weeks ago where I was mentioning that he's in the top 3 all time for me at Texas right now after one season. And it's a matter of how high up that list he climbs. If you add Jordan Addison, you're now talking about adding a guy that's projected to be a potential top 10 pick in next year's NFL draft. You've got Isaiah Nayor, who had 12 touchdowns and averaged 20 yards a catch at Wyoming last year. You've got Jordan Whittington, who even last night, Jordan Addison could take Jordan Whittington's job when it's all said and done. But Sarkeesian always talks up Jordan Whittington as a guy that when he's healthy really adds a lot to the offense. You think about Jatavian Sanders. I don't know how good Texas would be on the field in 2022, but I would never go to the bathroom when Texas has the football. Just, it becomes must-see TV, I think, to watch that group of players playing together if they can piece it all together. It's a real moment of opportunity for Steve Sarkeesian to put a flag down that says, this is who I am. I have the ability to go out and get just about anybody in recruiting. And Jordan Addison is the best player that's been in the portal, maybe with the exception of Caleb Williams, maybe with the exception of Quinn Ewers. There aren't any other Biletnikoff Award winners in the portal. If he's able in the next 24 to 36 to 48 hours, able to convince Addison that he should entrust the next 6 months of his life leading up to the draft in him, I can't stress enough. I'm often critical of Steve Sarkeesian over little things. I'll nitpick Sark. I also mentioned from time to time that they went 5-7 last year. Getting Addison would be a monumental moment, I think, in the first year plus of his tenure. And it does, if they could pull it off on War, it would make me recalibrate what I think is possible for this team going into this season.
Yeah, because even with the receivers that you mentioned, you still had didn't mention Ajay Hall, Brendan Thompson, or what happens with Troy O'Meara if he comes back healthy. So, I mean, just add that to the mix where one of those guys could be your sixth guy off, third guy off the bench or something to that effect. Troy O'Meara could be your sixth guy. Like, I mean, that's crazy to think about it in that world if he's healthy. It points to Catch when I think about what the things that you talk about. I feel like there's been like a kind of an all chips in, let's get behind Sarkeesian thing behind the scenes, to make sure he gets all the talent that he needs. And so that's, there's a recruiting aspect of it, and there's different variables of it. But, he is able to get a Quinn Ewers, and that's kind of an all chips in, not only from Sarkeesian, but other folks behind the scenes. And you start talking about the Jaleel Billingsleys of the world and start Ryan Watts and, of everybody else that, they're able to get through the transfer portal. They were in there to the last minute with O'Shawn Mathis before he decides to go to Nebraska. Now we wake up and it's Jordan Addison. He's here in Austin. The one thing when the Steve Sarkeesian book is written, what will never be a chapter in that book is saying that the University of Texas did not support him. He has everybody support. Now, the Charlie Strong book, he would probably have a chapter in there that says, I didn't always get full support. Tom Herman will say, maybe I didn't always get full support. That's not the case here. This is full 100% support of him going after and obtaining the best athletes ever. And then to that last point that you made, Catch, if he does get a Jordan Addison, we can't sit here realistically into all the guys that you named, still Roschon Johnson coming off the bench, still Keelan Robinson coming off the bench, still, you still talked about Jatavian Sanders, Jaleel Billingsley, Gunnar Helm, Juan Davis when he gets healthy. When you start looking at that offense, we can't short sell it at that point, Catch. We can't sit here and say, well, 8 would be great. 8 would be a massive failure if you get a guy like Jordan Addison. If you got the two of the best receivers lining up in the country, at least I don't know where Xavier would rank, but I'm sure he's at least top 5. So you get the number one, another guy who's was in the top. And again, you add in all these other components. You still, I don't, anything. It's almost, you get Jordan Addison. This is what I would say. It's Big 12 or bust. It's almost Big 12 championship or bust, to be quite honest with you. If you bring in that guy, I don't give a damn what's on defense. Catch, go back to the Oklahoma days, right? You're just going to have to score 50 points and call it a day. I think becomes Big 12 or bust if he gets that guy.
It's a lot of pressure on Quinn Ewers, and which is what he signed up for. I mean, this is really, I think, who Quinn Ewers thinks of himself as as a guy that if you give me the toys, I'll deliver the goods. Like I don't think that guy runs from his number one overall ranking and the expectations that kind of follow him as being the guy that he is. I think there's a conversation that when Jordan Addison makes ultimately the decision that he's going to make, a big part of it's going to be Caleb Williams in one hand and Quinn Ewers in the other. And I'm putting myself in Jordan Addison's shoes here. So if I'm making that decision and I'm really basing, I want to get paid, right? I mean, it seems pretty clear Jordan Addison wants to make some NIL money, and I'm not begrudging that dude that at all, right? But part of why he stayed at Pitt long enough to get a spring with Keaton Slovis, the USC transfer, who is at Pitt replacing Kenny Pickett. So he goes through the spring, gets an evaluation of who he would potentially have at quarterback, and then decided after spring football, I'm going to do something else. And we know that I think that the only three teams in this are USC, Texas, and then Alabama. You've got a team with Caleb Williams on it, a team with Bryce Young on it, and a team with Quinn Ewers on it. I think Texas is going to be able to match the NIL dollars or even surpass. And I'll have an update on Orangebloods.com on this a little bit later. So if you're watching this video, get your ass over to the website. I'm going to have some stuff. When we're done recording this, I'm going to piece together an update. There will be some nuggets on this that I won't necessarily include in the video. But part of that will be, I think Texas is in a position where they feel like they got the NIL thing covered, right? This will not come down to that. I think what this will come down to is Sark's ability to sell the vision of this year to him, and B, that Quinn Ewers can elevate his draft status and not hurt it. And I got to be honest, I mean, this is the conversation I want to lead us in now. I don't know what I would do if I was Jordan Addison. And the easy answer would be go to Alabama, right, and just jump into that offense and play with Bryce Young. Yeah. And it's hard to imagine that your numbers are going to be terrible. And, oh, by the way, they produce a lot of first-round draft picks. But I don't know that Alabama is putting the NIL money in front of Addison the way USC and Texas would. And I think this is going to come down to a USC-Texas decision. And the Caleb Williams versus Quinn Ewers conversation is really interesting because you're talking about two guys, both of whom are in. If you go to an NFL draft website for 2024 rankings, right? So we're 2 years away. But if you do that, Caleb Williams and Quinn Ewers are often 1-2 in the projections, early projections of the 2024 draft. Caleb Williams is kind of the consensus number one, but Quinn Ewers is right there. Being forced potentially to make your decision based on those two options is a really interesting thing for me.
Yeah, Catch, and it's also a Steve Sarkeesian versus Lincoln Riley conversation that he has to have as well, right? I mean, because factoring into that's another big component is, okay, which coach do I believe has the capability to making sure that, I'm competing at a high level and, like you said, making sure my draft stock is not affected at all. Because, he can't, it's very hard for him to go anywhere, it's very hard to go backwards, but you don't want a world where that happens. So, it is, if you're him, do you make it solely off the money? Do you tell yourself, I'm so good that it doesn't matter who's throwing me the ball, I'll get open and I'll make that guy look good? Here's the thing. It's if Quentin at this moment, hasn't really played since high school. Now he's got all the tools, he's got everything. He just hasn't played in a college game. So it's a tad bit of a risk, for him in order to do that. I would imagine they would really need to be showing him some film of Quinn in practice for him to know, like, okay, this is legit what I'm working with, and I feel pretty good about that. I'm sure there's a conversation to be had with Quinn as well while he's here. It is an interesting question as to what ultimately will he decide. because you can see success at either place, right? I mean, you can see him going out to USC and being highly successful, enjoying Hollywood and all that there is there, and then coming here to Texas. Here's the only thing I would wonder, Catch, in the NIL conversation, and I don't have the answers to this. If he gets NIL money from Texas, is this a whole he avoids that whole state income tax as opposed to NIL money from California and he gets taxed on that? Because if there's a tax question, Catch, and if it's, my NIL deals are in California, but that means I get hit with da-da-da-da-da. There's a reason why everybody from California is moving to Texas, Catch.
No, it's a great point. It actually, I might, if you don't mind, I may take that. And I hadn't thought about it, but it isn't. I don't think it can be easily dismissed as a factor, really and truly, and especially if the money's close. Because if the money's close, it's not actually close.
Not with those taxes out there.
No. So, I think that's one more thing. And, again, I'll just say this. And again, you can go to orangebloods.com for a little bit more information on the specifics of this. He does not have a $2 million deal from USC. At least from what I'm gathering from my sources who've been at this point spot on about Jordan Addison and UT, and kind of over the course of the last week, they've nailed everything related to this recruitment. I'm hearing there's not $2 million on the table. So if you're at home and you're like, God, is Texas really going to spend $2 million on Jordan Addison? And then how much money would then Bijan want? And how much money would then Xavier Worthy want? That's not what's in play right here. And if you want more specifics, go to orangebloods.com for all of the information. On that note, Anwar, anything else you want to do to talk about in terms of this? Like, we've hit the main points, I think.
Yeah. Here's the only thing. Okay. He's got some Raising Cane's that we see a picture of him, and props to our man Blake for spotting that. They got to get him somewhere better, right? I mean, where's the spot that they have to take him to in Austin to kind of seal the deal? I mean, you can't do Raising Cane's and follow up with like Rudy's in the morning. Like, where do they need to take him to seal this deal?
Our producer Blake made a great point on this before we started recording, which was that's a Bijan Robinson sponsorship. That it might have been the first deal that Bijan announced for NIL was the Raising Cane's spokesperson thing. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to see a world where Bijan is driving around Jordan Addison in the Lambo and was like, "Hey, do me a solid. I'm gonna get you some canes and like just take a picture of it." And because here's the thing. What if Raising Cane's ends up sponsoring being like Jordan Addison is a spokesperson for Raising Cane's in a week from now? That's
imagine Bijan rolling. He's like, "Yo, you hungry? Yeah, let's come to this spot. Hey, Bijan, yeah. Hook my man up." It's I'm sure that has to be one hell of a life.
He's probably saying, if you take a picture with the Raising Cane's, you can have your own Lambo in a month from now. And so I think that's really interesting that happened, because it's a real low key, marker moment, I think, in the recruitment, in that putting that particular meal of all of them in front of him, knowing that that's one of Bijan's deals. I don't know. Look, the answer to your question ultimately is there's a million places they can take them. I mean, it's whatever food he likes, they'll be able. There's steakhouses galore. Don't take him to VY's. Like, no offense. But like there are so many great places. They take him to VY's. I don't care. But like at the end of the day, I think I want to see more photos of Addison in front of things that he might soon sponsor.
So you
You
don't
know what I
need,
mean?
like on Ladybird Lake or nothing like that. You don't need that. You just want him in front of like potential sponsorship places.
Like if he's at Hutto Covert tomorrow,
Yeah.
like that's a sign. Like, hey, just hanging around Austin. And you're like, wait a minute. Is that Covert Hutto? Is he driving around, in what, did they get him a new Mustang? Like all the kinds of things that they could do. It's a fun moment if you're a Texas football fan to be in the position where I think for the next 24 hours, you're the center of the college football universe. Everybody's watching this very closely. USC is watching it. Alabama's watching it. The entire Big 12 is watching it. And, it'll be fun for the rest of the week to do videos where this remains a possibility. This is a lot more fun than doing videos where, we're bored in the middle of May. There's just not a whole lot to talk about. This is a really interesting story that's the biggest story in college football at this exact moment. And I still consider Texas to be an underdog, but I don't think they're a big underdog. And I think what happens over the course of the next 24 hours will probably determine what happens in his recruitment. But he's on campus. He's on campus. There's at least a possibility that exists. And I don't know that right now that's true of anybody else other than USC. So, this turns into potentially a Texas USC battle. And that's not a battle that Texas can't win. If this was Texas v. Alabama, I kind of shrug my shoulders and would have a hard time completely making the case that he shouldn't just go play with Bryce Young. But there are a number of factors involved here that seem to have Texas 1 and 2. I don't think the NIL thing is insignificant in a battle of those three schools. And we'll see. By the time we do a video tomorrow, there might be another breaking news video at this exact time. My sources lead me to believe that Texas could know an answer before he leaves town after his official visit is over, maybe as early as tomorrow. Like, even if he doesn't announce anything, they'll know, because I think they kind of want an answer. Like, they don't want to be struck. There's a lot of pieces, moving parts to this, and I don't think it's one they want to linger around. Look, if there's an update, even tonight on Tuesday as we record this, I will interrupt the Philadelphia 76ers Game 5 against the Miami Heat if for some reason we absolutely have to. In the meantime, leave your name in the comments section. Leave any thoughts on how good, you tell me in the comments section. In a world where Jordan Addison is on this team, how good is this offensive personnel? Did I overcook the grits, or is this legitimately, on paper, one of the best and maybe the best set of skill talent that UT at the same time has ever had in one place? For Anwar Richardson and myself, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you as soon as there's a reason to talk to you. Later.